So a lot of people that are subscribed to my channel are people about my age. They're either in their later years of high school or they're in college. You know, they're at that age where they're looking to buy their first car. So there's a lot of lists out there that are going to tell you, you know, these are some great cars you can buy for a good price that'll get the job done, do just what you need to do. But I thought I'd do something a little bit different and tell you guys some cars that you shouldn't buy. So without further ado, here are 9 cars that you should never buy. So first up is a mid-2000s Mazda Rx-8. This is a car that I actually really wanted when I was young. You know, I thought it looked really cool. I didn't really know much about it, but I thought it'd be a great first car. But it has a 1.3 liter rotary engine that produces 238 horsepower, which is amazing for a car that size, or for an engine that size. But there's a reason why rotary engines aren't popular anymore, and that's why the RX-8 is no longer being made, because there were so many problems with its rotary engine. For example, you couldn't turn the car off right after you started it, or else you'd flood the engine. And this was a common problem with all rotary engines. But you had to keep the car running a bit. You had to make sure the engine warmed up before you turned it off, or else you could have some serious problems. The engines weren't really all that reliable, and aside from the engine, it didn't really look that good. It had some weird styling traits, like there were triangles everywhere. I don't know why Mazda chose to use triangles, but there's too many of them. They don't look good at all. So next up is a mid-2000s Lincoln LS. This car was the first American car to feature Ford's new, at the time obviously, computer-controlled 5-speed automatic transmission. And with having a new transmission, there were obviously a few problems with it. For example, you'd frequently have really hard shifts, whether upshifts or downshifts, and the car would also take up to 10 seconds to put into reverse, which is just unbelievable. The LS also featured a V8 developed by Jaguar that had countless problems with ignition coils and timing belts and chains, which, if not fixed immediately, caused thousands of dollars worth of damage out of warranty. Next on the list is the Suzuki Forenza. This car was manufactured only in the mid-2000s, and during its 5-year life, it had a ton of problems with the engine. Owners complained of the engine completely failing while the car was still under 100,000 miles. Other problems include blown head gaskets and the car refusing to turn over. And there's a reason why Suzuki doesn't really import anymore. It's because their cars did not sell well here in the US. And going back to that point, if you do have one of these cars and you have an issue, getting parts for it is next to impossible, because you'd have to pay for overseas shipping most of the time, or prices would be insanely high here in the US. So just not worth it for a car that looks quite horrible and performs just as poorly. So next on the list is the 1990 to mid-2000s Land Rover Discovery. Land Rovers have long been known for their high maintenance costs and horrible reliability. It's a car that you usually buy to only keep for a couple of years before upgrading. But the Discovery required maintenance much more often than other cars in its price range, and that began to take a toll on owners' wallets. You see major electrical problems with these cars, and problems sometimes so complex that not even the dealerships were able to figure out what was wrong and fix them. The Discovery also had a V8 in it, so not good gas mileage at all. I think it got about 14 mpg combined. So next up is the early to mid-2000s Mini Cooper. The CVT transmission in this car is probably one of the worst transmissions of all time. There were so many issues with it, and it was just horrible all around. It was actually so bad that owners filed a lawsuit against the company to try and get some reparation for the issues they had with their cars. Along with that, there were issues with the power steering pump going out and completely failing. And if you bought the S model, which obviously has the lower profile tires, stiffer suspension, and more power, you need to make sure that that supercharger was built or rebuilt around 100,000 miles, or else you'll probably have serious problems with that too. And it'll do damage to itself and the engine, which will be even more costly to repair. Number 6 on the list is the Land Rover Freelander. Pretty much any model year it was built. It was notorious, just like its brother, for having horrible issues, going from head gaskets failing, which actually happened way more often than it should, to timing belts constantly failing. I mean, the repairs would stack up so quickly that it would cost much more than the car is worth to replace them. So it's essentially just a massive money pit that you'll want to avoid. I was doing some research on this car online, and one more thing I found out about is that it also had a lot of problems with the brake pads and brake rotors, which is something that is extremely dangerous and that you never want to have to deal with, because that could honestly be the difference between life and death. So again, just stay away from the Freelander. Next up is a mid-1990s to early 2000s Mazda Millennia. The Millennia was supposed to be the trademark Mazda car. It was supposed to be its luxury car, its big saloon, but it completely failed, and the company ended up going through with it anyway. And to differentiate it from its other cars, they decided to put a supercharged V6 in it, which was a total disaster. Everything on that car leaked, from oil covers to supercharger seals, anything that you can think of. The supercharger also used a ton of oil, much more than it should, and being a luxury car like they claimed it to be, it didn't have a lot of the accessories to it that you would expect from a big luxury car. And as these problems all start to build up and culminate, it gets to the point where that car is cheaper to scrap and part out than it is to repair. So that's what a lot of owners ended up doing, and there's barely any of them on the road today. Number 8, the notorious crowd-killing Mustang, specifically the V6 automatic model. Please, I implore you, do not buy an automatic V6 Mustang. It is the whipping boy of the auto industry. At the time, it produced 210 horsepower, the early 2000s and mid-2000s models, which was less than their Edge SUV, which had a 3.5 or 3.6 liter V6, which produced 265 horsepower. So the base Mustang was getting beat out by its crossover brother. Mustangs are also known for leaving car meets in a rather reckless manner. So number 9 is the Toyota Prius, and no list would be complete without it. Despite it being one of the most popular cars in America and around the world, it is hated by car enthusiasts. It looks like a cheese wedge, and it performs like one. Kind of stole that from Vehicle Virgins, but it's a great point, and I found it pretty funny. If you do drive one of these, you will get zero respect by people who even care the slightest about cars. There's no upside about it except for the fact that it gets 80 million miles per gallon, which 99% of people who like cars don't even care about. So I hope you guys found this video informative and helpful. I was just trying to do something a bit different, you know. Instead of making cars that are popular and that sell well, make something that's not popular, you know, something that's a total failure and that sucks. So I hope you guys found this video informative. If you did, please drop a like below and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you guys for all the support. You know, it really helps me to make more videos, and if you've got any suggestions for future videos, just comment down below what you like to see, because I'd love to make content that you guys like. So once again, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.